Greetings, true champions of the cause. Welcome to Starplanet Beyond the Canon, where we showcase incredible literary works inspired by your favorite franchises. In today's episode, we dive into a fan-made tale set in the iconic world of Tron, Walt Disney Productions' groundbreaking 1982 science fiction action-adventure film, written and directed by Steven Lisberger, with a story by Lisberger and Bonnie McBird. Today's feature is Tron, Ascension, a captivating work written by Keone Snow and published on July 16, 2017. Now, dear travelers, let's begin. Near the edge of the grid, Flynn activated the user/program interface. A translucent wall, shimmering like glass, emerged in front of him. His fingers lightly grazed the surface, and on the other side, streams of data began to materialize. Bits of code floated and fused, gradually shaping into a figure, a reflection of Flynn himself. Once the formation was complete, the barrier slid back into the ground, leaving the new program standing alone. "You are Clue," Flynn said, his voice echoing through the room. "I am Clue," the program responded without hesitation, its voice a perfect mirror of its creator. "You will create the perfect system. I will create the perfect system." These were the first words Clue truly remembered. The knowledge that he wasn't the first of his kind flickered in his mind. There had been another Clue once, tasked with infiltrating the NCOM server, but that felt distant, an event beyond his comprehension. He had no way of piecing together the past with the fragmented data in his memory. All he knew was what Flynn had embedded in his code, a part of himself transferred during creation. As Clue gained control over the grid, he immediately began reshaping it. His purpose was clear: strive for perfection, as Flynn had commanded. But as days turned into cycles, he found himself uncertain, unsure if his efforts were truly aligned with his creator's vision. Flynn's long absences left Clue alone, making decisions he hoped were right, but always carrying a shadow of doubt. One evening, Clue stood alongside Flynn, watching the glowing city evolve before their eyes, its towers rising like luminous spires into the dark expanse above. "Flynn?" Clue spoke at last, his tone measured. "I have a question." Flynn glanced at him, an easy smile on his face. "Shoot, what's on your mind?" Clue hesitated only for a second. "What is perfection?" Flynn hadn't expected that. He turned back to the city, sweeping his arm out in a broad gesture. "This. Everything running smoothly. No glitches, no wasted space. A place where every program functions as it should. No sickness, no war, pure harmony." Clue listened intently, absorbing each idea, though many felt beyond his grasp. "So, am I doing the right thing?" he asked, his voice laced with a rare uncertainty. Flynn chuckled, clapping a hand on Clue's shoulder. "Of course you are. Look at this city. It's incredible. Why doubt yourself? It's just, you're gone for so long. There are times I'm not sure. I've tried consulting Tron, but he wasn't much help." Flynn nodded thoughtfully. "Tron's a protector. He's not built to create. That's your role, Clue." Clue fell silent for a moment, thoughts swirling in his head. He wasn't sure how to voice the unease that had settled within him, so instead he asked, "How do you create programs?" Flynn grinned, a look of amusement crossing his face. "That's a big one." He paused, thinking. "In the real world, we have machines called computers. We write programs line by line and compile them into something functional. The grid is a reflection of that process." Clue filed the information away, unable to fully grasp it yet, but intrigued all the same. "Did you create me that way?" Flynn looked at him with a softer expression. "You're different. I made you here, in the grid. You're a part of me, Clue. You have everything you need to fulfill your purpose. They stood in quiet companionship for a moment, before Flynn suddenly brightened. "Race you to the city," he shouted, summoning his light cycle. Many cycles passed before Flynn returned again. Each absence weighed heavier on Clue, though he kept his feelings hidden, unsure if it was his place to express them. When Flynn finally reappeared, he seemed changed, older, more distracted. Clue pushed down the desire to tell him how much he missed his presence, the constant ache for guidance. The city had expanded, and now Clue needed Flynn's approval to extend it further toward the sea of simulation. Near the development zone, Flynn gazed at a digital diagram of the grid, illuminated by shifting streams of data. "Look at this," Flynn said suddenly, his voice filled with excitement. Clue followed Flynn's gaze. A crowd of unfamiliar programs was approaching from the shoreline. His instinct screamed caution. They weren't part of the system, nor were they anything Flynn had created. One of the newcomers, with bright eyes and a curious expression, met Clue's gaze. There was something unsettling about them. They had no directives, no coded purpose. It felt wrong. "These are isomorphic algorithms, Clue. The grid created them. New life forms, completely spontaneous." Flynn's voice brimmed with awe. Clue's mind raced. Spontaneous life inside the grid? It went against everything he had been programmed to do. Flynn and Tron welcomed the ISOs with ease, while Clue stood apart, observing. To him, they were unpredictable, a potential threat to the system's integrity. Later, in the city's central hub, Flynn, Tron, and Clue sat together, the conversation turning to the ISOs once again. Clue couldn't hold back his thoughts. They don't have directives or a purpose. They're a risk to everything we've built. Tron shook his head. There's no sign of corrupted code. But they're not your creation, Flynn, Clue insisted, frustration creeping into his voice. Flynn sighed, clearly weary of the argument. The grid made them, and that means they belong here, just like any other program. Clue's expression hardened. They're deviations. Flynn's voice rose, uncharacteristically sharp. They're not deviations, Clue. They're a miracle. The tension in the room was palpable as they stared at one another. Flynn rubbed his eyes, exhausted. Let it be for now. Keep an eye on them. I'll be back soon to help you both figure it out. As Flynn left, escorted by Tron, Clue remained behind, replaying the exchange over and over in his mind. He couldn't understand why Flynn, the one who demanded perfection, would defend something so flawed. The ISOs represented everything he was meant to eliminate. Flynn wanted perfection, so why did he support imperfection? Okay, let's take a break. We'll be back after these messages. You are watching Starplanet, Beyond the Canon.
Ba-dum.
Greetings, true champions of the cause. We hope you're enjoying your stay here on Starplanet. Please allow me to take this opportunity to introduce you to Starplanet Music, a continuously expanding portfolio of musical works that spans an impressive array of genres. Starplanet Music, the future of the underground. Visit starplanetmusic.com today.
The universe
universe is a grand place, full of uncertainty. But the one thing you can be sure on is the greatest pizzas can always be found at Pistol Star Pizza, with over 500 trillion outlets throughout the universe. One thing is for sure, you'll never go hungry at Pistol Star Pizza. Pistol Star Pizza. At Pistol Star Pizza.
Would you look at that?
The new beef superior is here, only at Starry's. Wherever you are in the universe, there's always one place that feels like home. Starry's, eat in, eat out, but always eat the best.
Welcome back. Let's continue. Flynn honored his promise and began frequenting the grid, but he found himself drawn more and more to the ISOs. In a sweeping gesture of acceptance, he allowed them to construct their own towers by the shimmering sea of simulation. These structures stood apart from the rest of the city, their forms a captivating dance of asymmetry and grace. Crafted from intricate shapes that seemed to defy purpose, they were a testament to beauty, drawing the eye and inspiring wonder. Meanwhile, Clue operated with an intensity that bordered on obsession, as if locked in an unspoken rivalry with Flynn. His days became a blur of relentless improvement, endlessly refining existing functions and envisioning new ones. The spirit of competition ignited within him, fueled by the essence of the user. It was clear, the grid needed an arena. With fervent dedication, Clue mapped out its contours and capabilities, envisioning a space where programs could showcase their prowess. As the population of programs swelled, they began to form into groups, dictated by their access levels and unique traits. Clue recognized their nature. They were not malevolent by design. However, the ISOs posed a different question. Created outside the purview of the users, their intentions remained shrouded in mystery. A security force seemed necessary. Selecting several hundred programs, Clue laid the foundation for the elite guard, and Tron took it upon himself to lead their training. Firewall routines were strategically deployed throughout the city, reinforcing the lines of defense. Yet, a peculiar disturbance periodically disrupted the harmony of the grid. Access ways would collapse unexpectedly, data streams would falter, and simulations would fail to initialize. Though minor in nature, these errors hinted at a deeper issue, and Clue was resolute in uncovering the root cause. When he queried Flynn about it, he received a single cryptic response: grid bugs. The term seemed far-fetched to Clue, who couldn't shake the feeling that the recent emergence of the ISOs was somehow intertwined with these anomalies. Driven by his curiosity, he resolved to gather every scrap of information available. "What do you mean Clue is acting strange?" Flynn asked, the wind whipping through the outlands, a desolate stretch of the grid mostly hidden from the other programs. The rocky terrain, with its jagged edges and uneven surfaces, felt almost otherworldly. "It seems like he's never satisfied with what he accomplishes," Tron replied, his brow furrowed in concern. "He pushes himself and everyone around him to the brink, and sometimes, when you're not looking, he studies you like you're a puzzle to solve." Maybe he's just trying to emulate me. After all, I created him, Flynn said with a hint of pride, though uncertainty flickered in his eyes. That look on his face is nothing like the impression you gave me. It feels like he's judging you, as if you don't measure up to his expectations. I've seen it too many times, Tron insisted, his voice steady but urgent. Stopping in his tracks, Tron turned to Flynn, the weight of his concern palpable. I'm worried about your safety. I will make sure you're never out of my sight while you're on the grid. Flynn recognized the seriousness in his friend's tone and knew that arguing would be futile. In that moment, he understood the depths of Tron's loyalty, even as the shadows of uncertainty loomed larger around them. In the heart of his command center, surrounded by the dim glow of data streams and projections, Clue immersed himself in a profound analysis. This time, his focus shifted away from the intricacies of the grid to a singular, troubling figure, Flynn. Holographic displays flickered around him, each projection revealing intricate details about the user's behaviors and decisions. Clue meticulously cycled through the information, his thoughts a tempest of calculation and contemplation. This marked the second time he had traversed the same path, yet the initial findings still sent shockwaves through his core. The revelation struck him like a bolt of lightning. The creator was undermining his own creation. The first casualty of the isomorphic algorithms had been Flynn himself. The gravity of this insight weighed heavily on Clue, and he began to pace restlessly within the confines of his sterile, metallic chamber. Deep down, he had already formulated a plan, but the radical nature of his intentions gave him pause, causing an internal struggle. With a flick of his wrist, he activated the deep analysis subroutines, summoning forth a cascade of information that scrolled rapidly across the screens. Analysis, isomorphic algorithms, undefined, purpose undefined, primary directive, origin, unknown, conclusion, highly unstable entities. As the synchronization took hold, he felt an unexpected connection form between himself and Tron, experiencing a semblance of what the security program endured. Clue grasped the depth of the damage he had inflicted. The pain resonated within him like an echo of regret. I am sorry. Now I understand your suffering. This was necessary. I need you to help me create the perfect system. It's what Flynn desires, and it's my only purpose. Tron, now devoid of any recognizable response, lay silent before him. Clue's heart sank at the absence of anger or resistance he had anticipated. He had stripped Tron of everything that made him who he was. Rinzler. The name formed in his mind as a haunting reminder of the irreversible act he had committed. Release him, Clue commanded, the weight of his voice heavy in the air. But he is, came the hesitant reply. Rinzler won't harm me. Release him, Clue insisted, the urgency in his tone leaving no room for dissent. As Jarvis and the guards departed, Clue found himself alone, staring down at the red-lined program lying motionless on the ground. Questions surged within him, each more painful than the last. Why, Flynn? Why was it left to me to take such drastic measures? Why did you forsake your promise and turn against the very purpose you assigned to me? Memories of recent events crashed over him like waves. The fury directed at his creator a tempest within. You are the cause of all this. I will find you, and when I do... Leaning against the wall, he resolved to wait until Rinzler reawakened. It was the least he could do, though the thought felt achingly burdensome. If only I had known, Clue whispered, a single tear trailing down his cheek. In that moment, the yellow-lined program grappled with emotions in a manner that felt deeply human. The grid, once chaotic and fraught with tension, began to settle into a tense equilibrium. Yet, for Clue, the work was far from complete. Rogue ISOs continued to sow discord, presenting challenges that both he and Rinzler struggled to contain. Their skirmishes became the backdrop for a larger game, one that held the potential to reshape the digital landscape. With the game's arena operational, the atmosphere crackled with excitement. Programs, both basic and advanced, gathered in anticipation of the duels, eager to witness the prowess of the fighters. The ISOs, though initially seen as a threat, proved themselves as formidable opponents, pushing the limits of their skills against Clue's elite warrior, Rinzler. The dual disc technique that Rinzler mastered made him an almost mythical figure on the arena floor, leaving spectators in awe of his seamless strikes and agile maneuvers. The success of the repurposing process emboldened Clue to extend his reach, integrating it into the codes of other programs with a deftness that rendered the operation virtually painless. The subjects, unaware of the changes occurring within their very essence, continued to function, their individuality quietly stripped away. As he cycled through their data, Clue gleaned unsettling insights about the outside world. The revelations painted a chaotic picture, humans embroiled in conflicts over trivial matters, squandering their resources. A phrase from Flynn echoed in Clue's mind. "In there is our future. In there is our destiny." A jolt of realization surged through him. Could it be? Was he destined to be the architect of a perfect world for users? Was he the very embodiment of that future? As cycles turned into years, Clue's search for Flynn became increasingly fruitless. The user had seemingly vanished into the grid, leaving no trace behind. Despite relentless sweeps conducted by the elite guards around the portal area, Flynn remained elusive, slipping through their digital fingers like a wisp of smoke. In the arena, Rinzler thrived. A master of combat, he stood as the last warrior, no program, be it basic or ISO, able to withstand his prowess. The arena transformed into a battleground where Rinzler's skills dazzled and frightened in equal measure, his ability to wield two identity discs setting him apart as a legend. As 1,000 cycles slipped away, a span equivalent to over 21 years in the outside world, Clue's ambitions bore fruit. The rogue ISOs had long since been purged, and the grid stood as a monument to Clue's vision of perfection. Most programs had been repurposed, and only a handful, those who evaded capture by Clue, Rinzler, or the elite guards, remained hidden within the city's shadows. Whenever they were discovered, they faced rectification or the brutal arena. In his quest for ultimate control, Clue discovered an old, outdated I/O port through one of his latest, optimized programs. This program contained the means to reach the outside world, the final piece of his grand design. The portal, now active, held the key to luring Flynn back into the digital realm. Clue understood that the arrival of another user would be the catalyst he needed, and for that, he decided to reach out to the only person he believed would cling to hope, Alan Bradley. But as the portal shimmered to life and a user stepped through, it was not Alan who emerged. "Dad?" The word reverberated through Clue like an electric shock, awakening a sensation he hadn't anticipated. Loneliness washed over him in a wave, threatening to drown him in its depths. After so many cycles spent tirelessly molding the grid into a vision of perfection, he had done so in solitude, save for Rinzler, whose loyalty was bound by duty. Clue felt an emptiness gnawing at him, a missing piece he struggled to articulate. Sam, Flynn's son, had arrived. In that moment, Clue's plans crystallized with certainty. The path to bringing his creator back was now laid out before him, but it came with a perilous cost. To draw Flynn from the shadows, he would have to place Sam in danger, setting the stage for a brutal showdown within the light cycle arena, where survival was uncertain and skill was paramount. A user competing against Clue. No wonder the arena buzzed with anticipation. It worked. I knew it would. Flynn, ever predictable, would undoubtedly come for his son. But there was a wrinkle in the plan. Someone had intervened, aiding Sam in his escape. Rinzler's failure to capture them momentarily irked Clue, but he brushed aside his concern. There would be ample opportunities to seize the master key, a gateway to the outside world. The game was still in motion, and the pieces were slowly aligning. The roar of the sea faded into the distance as Rinzler sank beneath the shimmering waters of the Sea of Simulation. Clue flew away on his spare light jet, his face an expressionless mask, unmoved by the loss of the program that had fought by his side for over 1,000 cycles. Rinzler, once Tron, was now just another casualty in Clue's pursuit of perfection. There was no time for remorse, not when the master key had slipped from his grasp. The sky above the grid darkened as Clue sped toward the portal, his mind racing with a mixture of frustration and anticipation. Flynn had always been predictable, and today was no different. I had a feeling you would be here. Clue's voice echoed across the dark expanse as he landed. Flynn appeared in the dim light, older now, a shadow of the man Clue once knew. His hair was streaked with silver, his once vibrant energy dulled by time. Clue felt a flicker of satisfaction at seeing Flynn like this, weak and diminished. It was a small, bitter reward for the 1,000 cycles of labor and frustration Clue had endured in Flynn's absence. I did everything you ever asked. Clue's voice rose, tinged with a desperation he hadn't realized he still felt. The anger that had simmered within him for so long bubbled over, filling the space between them. Flynn stepped forward, calm in the face of Clue's fury. I know you did. His words were soft, as though the years had worn down not just his body, but his will. I executed the plan, Clue snapped, his fists clenched. As you saw it, Flynn replied, his gaze steady but distant. The words stung more than Clue had anticipated. Flynn's calm, his acceptance, only fueled Clue's rage. All those cycles, all that work, and this was Flynn's response? Where had he been when Clue needed him? Off with the ISOs, those imperfect, unpredictable entities. Flynn had wanted perfection, but he had abandoned the system, left C. Clue to manage it alone. You, Clue's voice broke. You promised we would change the world together. You broke your promise. He had waited so long to say those words. And now, standing face to face with the man who had created him, Clue's fury was mixed with something deeper, an aching disappointment. Flynn had been more than just his creator. He had been like a father, and Clue, despite everything, still craved his approval. Flynn looked at him with a sadness that Clue hadn't expected. I know. I understand that now. But that wasn't enough. Flynn's calm acceptance felt like an insult. Clue had taken the system to its peak, made it perfect, and now Flynn was standing here, telling him that it was all in vain. I took this system to its maximum potential. I created the perfect system. Clue's voice cracked with desperation, his vision blurring with the enormity of what he had sacrificed. Flynn's gaze softened, filled with regret. I'm sorry, Clue. I'm sorry. The words hit Clue like a blow. The emptiness inside him swelled until it threatened to engulf him. After everything he had done, everything he had fought for, Flynn's response was pity, apology. How could Flynn look at all Clue had accomplished and call it failure? Anger surged again, hot and overwhelming. Flynn was corrupted, tainted by the ISOs. Clue's purpose was to create the perfect system, and Flynn had betrayed that purpose. He had to follow the primary directive. With renewed fury, Clue turned his attention to Sam and Quora, the last obstacles in his path. "Clue!" Flynn's voice rang out, a warning. "Remember what you came for." For a moment, Clue hesitated, torn between the rage that consumed him and the cold logic of his mission. The master key, his ultimate goal, was still within reach. He holstered his disc and deactivated the bridge to the portal, trapping Flynn on one side and Sam and Quora on the other. There was no need to rush now. He could savor this moment, the final confrontation between creator and creation. "You knew I would defeat you," Clue said, his voice low. "Instead you did all this. For him." He held Flynn's disc in his hand, but something was wrong. This wasn't the master key. Flynn had switched it somehow, outwitting him once again. Clue felt a pang of betrayal. Flynn had chosen Sam, his biological son, over him. "Why?" Clue's voice trembled with hurt. "He is my son." Flynn's words were soft but resolute. Clue activated the disc, but in that moment, a flood of memories rushed through him. Flynn had created him, shaped him, given him purpose. He had once been like a son to Flynn too. The realization was like a knife to the heart, and for the first time, Clue found himself unable to follow through. He couldn't derez Flynn. He couldn't destroy the man who had given him life, even if that life was now meaningless. With a frustrated cry, Clue threw the disc aside and leaped over the gap, racing toward the portal. He had nothing left. The perfect system he had worked so hard to create was not what Flynn wanted. His primary directive was gone, reduced to ashes. There was no reason to reach the outside world now, no purpose left to fulfill. But still, he pushed forward, knowing what was coming next: reintegration. As Flynn moved toward him, Clue knew what would happen. Reintegration would destroy them both, but it didn't matter anymore. His purpose was gone, his reason for existing shattered. For a brief moment, as the process began, Clue took one last look at the grid, the world he had tried so hard to perfect. Memories of his early days with Flynn and Tron flickered through his mind, moments of camaraderie and trust. "Never doubt yourself again, Clue. I trust you," Flynn had once said. And in that final moment, as the reintegration consumed him, Clue felt something he had never felt before: peace. For the first time since his creation, he felt accomplished. And with that, true champions of the cause. Part 1 of our story has come to an end. On the next episode, we will continue with this story from the grid. I thank you for spending this time with us, and I look forward to seeing you again. Please let your thoughts be known in the comments. I truly look forward to reading them. So, until next time, please like, comment, and subscribe. Go visit enterstarplanet.com for more. And until our paths meet again, I have been your host, Arius Vallow. See you in the shadows, my love.